"Mommy? Mommy, what are you doing here?" Alice's voice cracked the air like thunder. Andrew Okafor froze in his own living room. He had just opened the door with a smile, ready to introduce his fiancée to the kind, quiet woman he'd brought home to keep safe. But Alice rushed past him, eyes wide, hand over her mouth, staring at the old woman on the couch. The old woman's fingers trembled. Her eyes searched Alice's face. "Child?" she whispered. Everything went silent. The world stopped, and then, 2 days earlier, the traffic under Oshodi Bridge growled like a hungry animal. Buses shouted. Hawkers waved bottles of water. The sun hit the concrete hard and bright. Andrew's black Bentley rolled slowly through the noise, windows up, cool air inside, quiet as a prayer. Andrew should have been on a call with his managers. He should have been thinking about the new data center, the board meeting, and all the numbers people called big. But the city kept pulling his eyes to the side of the road, faces, hands, lives moving fast and rough. Then he saw her. An elderly woman stood by a green trash can. Her gown was brown and torn, stained with old rain and dust. Her grey hair was messy and scattered around her face. With careful fingers, she picked a piece of bread out of the trash. She blew the dirt away. She dusted it with her palm, and then she lifted it to her mouth. Andrew's chest burned. "Stop the car," he said. His driver, Kola, glanced back in the mirror. "Sir? Stop. Now." The Bentley slid to a halt by the curb. Noise rushed in when Andrew opened the door. Heat slapped his face. He stepped out, tall and neat in his navy suit, the smell of oil and smoke all around. People stared. Some recognized him. A few raised their phones. Andrew didn't care. He walked straight to the trash can. "Ma," he said softly, "please don't eat that." The woman looked up, surprised. Her eyes were brown and tired, but gentle. She had the look of someone who had walked too far for too long. "I don't want to bother anyone," she whispered. I'm only hungry." Andrew swallowed. For a second, he saw his mother Olivia smiling at him from their old kitchen years ago, telling him, "Kindness is never a loss." The memory punched his heart. "What's your name?" he asked. The woman blinked hard. I can't remember it well. They call me Teresa. Maybe Teresa." "It's okay, Ma. My name is Andrew. Please, drop the bread. Come with me. Let's get good food." She stared at him like she was waiting for a trick. Around them, 2 teenagers laughed and walked off. A bus horn blasted. A hawker shook his head and muttered, "Nah, mad woman." Andrew reached out his hand. "Please." Slowly, she let the bread fall back into the bin. She placed her small, shaking hand in his. "That's it," he said, smiling. "We're going just over there." He led her to a nearby restaurant. It wasn't fancy, but it was clean and bright. The owner, a round man with kind eyes, rushed over when he saw Andrew. "Oga, welcome, sir." "Jollof rice," Andrew said, "with chicken. And cold water." He glanced at the old woman. 2 plates. Big ones. She sat down very carefully, like the chair might reject her. When the food came, she stared at it as if it was a storybook. Then she ate. Not fast. Not wild, just steady. A tear slipped down her face, and she wiped it away quick, like tears were a waste. Andrew stepped to the counter. He lowered his voice. "She'll be coming here. If she comes, feed her. Every time. Put it on my bill." The owner nodded at once. "Done, sir." When Andrew returned to the table, the woman was sitting straight, the empty plate neat before her. She looked at him, puzzled. "Why?" she asked. "Because someone fed me when I needed help," he said. "And because you deserve better than a trash can." Her lips shook. "God bless you." He smiled again, but inside, something heavy pressed on his chest. He guided her to the door, waited while she thanked the restaurant owner 3 times, then walked her back toward the bridge. She pointed to a corner where cardboard and plastic formed a small, sad shelter. "I sleep here," she said. "Near people. Less fear." Andrew's hands curled into fists. "I'll check on you," he said. "Please go to the restaurant if you need food." She nodded. "Thank you, Andrew." He returned to the Bentley and shut the door. The cool air touched his skin, but it didn't cool his mind. He saw the trash can. He saw her fingers. He saw the bread. His mother's voice echoed, "Kindness is never a loss." Kola drove on. That night, Andrew lay awake in his big, quiet room. The city hummed far away. He stared at the ceiling and tried to think of numbers and plans, but a single picture kept floating back. An old woman, careful hands, bread dusted off, a small tear. He turned on his side. He turned on the other side. He sat up. He gave up. In the morning, he still felt the same. On the second day, meetings filled his hours, but his mind kept slipping back under the bridge. He sent a message to the restaurant owner. Did she come? The reply came quick. Yes, sir. She ate twice. She thanked you. Andrew let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. On the third day, he couldn't stand it. Let's pass, Oshodi, he told Kola. Traffic was thicker now. The sun was hotter. They slid under the bridge again and parked. Andrew stood beside the Bentley, eyes scanning the shadows and the pillars and the people. She wasn't there. 5 minutes became 10. 10 became 20. A bus scraped past. A child chased a plastic bottle. Andrew waited, jaw tight. Please be safe. Please be safe. Kola cleared his throat. Sir, we may need to... There, Andrew said. She appeared from the far side of the bridge, small and slow, carrying a white plastic bag with the restaurant's logo. When she saw Andrew, she stopped as if she was afraid he was a dream. Then she waved, shy and bright at the same time. You came back, she said. I told you I would. He nodded at the bag. Food? Yes. They said you told them to help me. She looked down, then up again. I went there late because I was remembering something. I think I was taken from somewhere, from home. Port Harcourt. Is that a place? Or is my mind lying? Andrew's heart kicked. Port Harcourt is a real place, Ma. She touched her temple. Men took me. A car. I cried. I don't remember the faces. I don't remember anything after. When they let me go, my head was empty. People called me mad when I asked for help. I started sleeping here because nobody would listen. Tears stung Andrew's eyes. He blinked them back. You're not mad. You were hurt. You need checks. A doctor. She flinched. I don't have money. I do, he said gently. Come, please, let's go now. For a moment, the noise under the bridge felt far away. The old woman looked at his face as if she was reading a book, trying to see if the story was safe. All right, she said. Andrew opened the Bentley's back door. She climbed in slowly, clutching her bag. Kola pulled into the river of traffic, horn sounds sliding past like waves. At the hospital, a young nurse helped them, her eyes soft when she saw the old woman's careful hands. Tests were done. Blood pressure, sugar, a scan. Andrew sat with her in the waiting area and told her about his mother, how Olivia would feed strangers and say a blessing over every plate. Your mother is a good woman, the old woman said. She was, Andrew said. She taught me to stop when I see pain. A doctor came at last with a small smile. Good news, no major problems. She's weak and needs rest. But her brain scans are okay. Memory loss can come from trauma. Time, care, and familiar things can help. Andrew nodded, hope lighting in his chest. They walked out into the late afternoon. The sun fell lower, turning Lagos gold. The hospital doors hissed shut behind them. Andrew was already planning. New clothes, a bath, real rest, a safe room in his home, a soft chair near a window, a plant, music, a chance for peace. By the drop-off lane, the old woman tugged his sleeve. Andrew? Yes, ma? She stared hard at the air, as if reaching for a floating string. Her lips moved. A sound formed and broke. She tried again, breath shaky. My child, she whispered. I think her name is Ali. Her eyes rolled. The white plastic bag slid from her hand. Ma? Andrew caught her as her knees gave way. The nurse at the door shouted for help. A monitor from inside the ward beeped somewhere like a warning. Kola jumped out of the Bentley, arms wide. Sir, Andrew lifted the old woman into his arms. Her head rested against his shoulder. A single word, half-born, hung between them like a thin thread in the wind. Ali, the nurse grabbed a wheelchair and pushed it toward them at a run. Andrew looked up at the hospital doors, jaw set, heart pounding. Hold on, he said, voice breaking. Please, hold on. The night rain began softly, the kind that barely touched the ground, but whispered over the rooftops. Andrew sat in his study, staring at the glass of water on his desk. It was past midnight, yet his thoughts refused to rest. Upstairs, the old woman, Madame Teresa, as she now remembered, was asleep in one of the guest rooms of his mansion. Her hair had been washed and brushed at the salon earlier that day. Her brown gown, once torn and stained, was replaced by a simple white dress. When the mirror showed her reflection for the first time in years, she had gasped quietly and whispered, "So this is me." Andrew smiled at the memory. But the image of her fainting outside the hospital kept flashing in his mind. The doctor had said it wasn't serious, just exhaustion and memory stress. Still, the sound of her voice calling Ali refused to leave his ears. He leaned back, closing his eyes. There was something in her face, something that made him feel connected to her. It wasn't pity. It was deeper. Like destiny had placed her there for a reason. The next morning, the smell of fried eggs and toast filled the mansion. Andrew came downstairs to find Madame Teresa sitting carefully at the long dining table, her hands folded on her lap. A housemaid stood nearby, smiling shyly. "Good morning, Ma," Andrew greeted. She turned, her eyes bright but gentle. "Good morning, my son. I hope I didn't trouble anyone." Andrew shook his head, taking a seat beside her. "You could never be a trouble. How did you sleep?" "Like a queen," she said softly. "It's been many years since I slept on something that wasn't made of concrete or cardboard." The housemaid served them both. For a while, they ate in silence, listening to the soft hum of the air conditioner and the birds outside the window. Then Andrew spoke again. "You said something the other day," he began carefully. "You said you had a child. Do you remember anything else?" Madame Teresa frowned, touching her forehead. "I see. Lights, sometimes. And a small girl. Always laughing, always calling me mummy." She smiled faintly. But then the picture disappears. Andrew's chest tightened. "We'll find her," he said firmly. "I promise you." That afternoon, Andrew had to attend a board meeting in Victoria Island. But even in the middle of presentations and discussions about profits, his mind kept drifting back home. When he returned that evening, he found Madame Teresa sitting in the garden, watching the sunset. The orange glow painted her face softly, and for the first time, she looked peaceful. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Andrew said, walking toward her. "Yes," she replied, smiling. "I used to watch sunsets with my husband in Port Harcourt. I think his name was John Jonathan." Andrew stopped. His heart skipped a beat. "You remember his name?" She looked surprised herself. "Yes. Jonathan. He was tall. He used to call me my treasure." Her eyes watered. "Oh, I miss him so much." Andrew sat beside her quietly. "Do you think he's still alive?" She shook her head slowly. "I don't know. When I try to remember, everything after the night I was taken becomes fog." Days passed. Madame Teresa grew stronger. Sometimes she helped the maids fold laundry or sat with the driver to listen to the evening news. She laughed again. She prayed before bed. And Andrew, he began to feel something he hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. But he also felt something else. Loneliness. One night, as he sat on the balcony scrolling through emails, he got a call. "Mr. Okafor, it's Dr. Benjamin from the Port Harcourt Business Conference Committee. We'd be honored if you could speak at next week's conference. It's about data innovation in Africa." Andrew smiled faintly. "I'll be there." After ending the call, he glanced toward the guest room door down the hallway. "Port Harcourt," he murmured. Her hometown. Maybe, just maybe, going there would bring answers. The conference hall in Port Harcourt was all glass and chrome, buzzing with cameras and microphones. Andrew stood on the stage in his navy suit, speaking with confidence and calm. His voice echoed through the speakers. "True innovation doesn't start with machines. It starts with humanity, how we treat each other." Applause filled the room. When the event ended, a woman approached him near the lobby. She was in her early 30s, elegant and composed, wearing a white blouse tucked into a royal blue skirt. Her voice was soft but sharp, like someone used to solving problems. "Mr. Okafor," she said, smiling, "that was the best talk I've heard in years." "Thank you," Andrew replied. "And you are?" "Alice," she said. "Alice Jonathan." The name froze him for a moment. "Jonathan," he repeated slowly. "Yes," she said. "My late father's name." Andrew blinked, forcing a smile. "Sorry for your loss." "Thank you," she said. "He passed away a year ago, He never recovered after my mother disappeared. Andrew's heart dropped. Your mother disappeared? Alice nodded, sadness clouding her bright face. Yes. She was kidnapped on her way back from the market 3 years ago. We searched everywhere. Police, hospitals, nothing. He swallowed hard, his pulse rising. What was her name? He asked, almost whispering. Teresa, Jonathan, Alice said softly. The world seemed to tilt. Andrew's breath caught. He looked at her brown eyes, her quiet strength, and something inside him whispered, "It can't be a coincidence." Later that evening, they sat in the hotel lounge, talking for hours. Alice told him stories about her mother, how she used to bake small meat pies and hum while cooking, how she always prayed for strangers, how she said kindness was the only thing that never fades. Andrew felt a lump in his throat. Every word mirrored the woman now living under his roof. When Alice laughed, he smiled too. But beneath his smile was a storm. Could it be her? He thought. Could Madame Teresa truly be this woman's mother? By the time they exchanged numbers and said goodnight, Andrew already knew, whether by fate or miracle, something extraordinary had begun. Back in Lagos 2 days later, Andrew sat on the couch opposite Madame Teresa. "I met someone at the conference," he said slowly. "A woman named Alice. She reminds me of you." Madame Teresa smiled faintly. "Does she make you happy?" He hesitated, then nodded. "Yes." "Then she's special," she said warmly. Andrew took a deep breath. "She's visiting Lagos next week. I'd like you to meet her." The old woman's eyes softened. "Of course, my son. I'd love that." That night, as Andrew stood by his window, watching the moonlight touch the city, he felt a strange calm. He didn't know that in less than a week, the truth would explode right in his living room, and the woman he thought he saved would soon turn out to be the mother of the woman he loved. The soft hum of the air conditioner filled the mansion's living room as Andrew straightened his tie one last time. His Bentley keys rested on the glass table beside a bouquet of white lilies he'd picked up for Alice. Today was the day. After weeks of late-night phone calls and video chats, Alice was finally flying to Lagos to visit him. Andrew had arranged everything perfectly: the guest suite, dinner reservations, even the music playlist she liked. But more than anything, he wanted her to meet Madame Teresa. He'd told her the story over the phone before. "There's an elderly woman I've been taking care of. Found her under a bridge, hungry. She reminds me of my mom." Alice had sighed softly. "You're a rare man, Andrew." He smiled at that memory now as he glanced toward the stairs. Madame Teresa appeared, her white gown replaced by a soft floral dress and a gentle smile. Her grey hair was neatly tied back, and her wrinkles looked kinder under the warm light. "So, she's coming today?" she asked, excitement in her tone. "Yes," Andrew said, beaming. "You'll like her, Ma. She's kind and brilliant. She makes me feel whole." Madame Teresa chuckled. "Then she must be special." "She is." He checked his watch. "Her flight just landed." "I'll wait here," she said. "Tell her I can't wait to meet her." 2 hours later, the front door opened. Alice stepped in, radiant in a soft blue blouse and black jeans. Her hair was braided neatly, her perfume subtle and sweet. "Welcome home," Andrew said, pulling her into a warm hug. She smiled. "It already feels like home." As they walked into the living room, laughter and joy followed them. But the next few seconds shattered everything, because the moment Alice's eyes landed on the old woman seated on the couch, her smile vanished. Her purse slipped from her hand and hit the floor. "Mommy?" she whispered. Andrew blinked, confused. "Wait? What?" Alice took a trembling step forward, tears filling her eyes. "Mommy! Oh my God, Mommy, what are you doing here?" Madame Teresa froze. Her fingers gripped the edge of the couch. Slowly, her lips parted, voice shaking. "Ali?" Alice rushed forward, falling to her knees beside her. "Mommy, it's me! Alice, it's your daughter!" The old woman stared hard at her face, her breath caught. And then it was like a wave of memory crashed through her. Her trembling hand rose to Alice's cheek. "My baby," she whispered. "My baby." Her sobs came like rain after a long drought. She pulled Alice close, kissing her forehead, her hands moving over her face as if to confirm she was real. Andrew stood frozen, his heart pounded. His mind raced through everything: the kidnapping, the fainting, the name she'd almost said, Ali. It all connected. Alice's mother, the woman he found at the trash can. The woman he'd brought into his home, the one who'd reminded him of his mother. He took a step back, overwhelmed by the impossible truth. Through her tears, Alice turned to him. "Andrew, how did you find her?" Andrew swallowed hard. I didn't know she was your mother. I found her. Under the Oshodi Bridge." Alice's hand flew to her mouth in disbelief. "She was eating from a trash can," Andrew continued, his voice trembling. "She couldn't remember anything. I took her to the hospital, then brought her home. I just wanted her safe." Alice covered her face, sobbing. "Oh my God, we searched everywhere for her. For 3 years. Daddy died, thinking she was gone forever." Madame Teresa looked up, eyes filled with sorrow. "Your father, Jonathan, he's gone." Alice nodded, crying harder. "He waited for you, Mummy. He fell sick from heartbreak." "It's live." The room fell silent, except for the sound of their tears. Andrew turned away slightly, fighting the ache in his chest. He had seen many things in his life, business deals, boardroom fights, headlines, but nothing had ever broken him like this. Here, in his own home, stood two souls stitched back together by fate. That night, they sat around the dinner table. The air was warm with candlelight and emotion. Madame Teresa spoke slowly, recounting her story. "I was kidnapped on my way home from the market. They took everything, my phone, my bag, even my memory. I don't remember how I escaped. I just remember waking up near the bridge. Every time I tried to ask for help, people called me mad. Until..." Her eyes found Andrew's. "Until he found me. He told me to drop the bread from the trash. He took me to eat. He gave me my dignity back." Alice's eyes glistened. "And then he brought you home. To me." Andrew tried to speak, but emotion cracked his voice. "I didn't plan this. I just couldn't walk away." Madame Teresa reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. "You did what my own son would have done. You treated me like family before knowing who I was." Alice wiped her eyes. "Now I understand why I felt something about you from the first day, Andrew. It wasn't just attraction. It was destiny." Their hands met across the table, and for the first time since losing her mother, Alice smiled fully again. The following weeks felt like a dream. Alice moved into the mansion temporarily, spending hours with her mother. They laughed, cooked together, and shared stories of the lost years. Andrew would often stand at the door, watching quietly, a warm smile on his face. One evening, as the three of them sat watching the sunset, Madame Teresa said softly, "I used to pray for a miracle. I didn't know the miracle would come." Wearing a suit and driving a Bentley, they all laughed through their tears, and as night fell over Lagos, Andrew realized something that filled his heart completely. He hadn't just saved a woman from the trash can, he had saved a family, and unknowingly, he had found his own. But destiny wasn't done with them yet, because soon a choice would test Andrew's love, a choice between his business empire and the woman whose family he helped rebuild. Morning sunlight poured through the mansion windows like liquid gold. Birds chirped in the garden, the air smelled faintly of fresh lilies, and laughter echoed down the hallway. For the first time in years, peace lived in Andrew's home. Madame Teresa sat at the dining table, folding napkins with gentle hands. Alice stood beside her, dressed in a soft white blouse, her hair tied in a ponytail. She was radiant not just in beauty, but in joy. Every now and then, she would glance at Andrew and smile in that way that said thank you without words. Andrew leaned against the doorway, arms folded, quietly watching them. "This is what happiness looks like," he thought. "This is what money can't buy." A few weeks had passed since the shocking reunion. Life had settled into something almost normal. Alice had decided to move to Lagos permanently and was helping her mother adjust to her new life. But she wasn't content to stay idle. One evening, she walked into Andrew's study with a determined look. "Andrew," she said, "I've been thinking. I want to work again." He looked up from his laptop. "You mean in my company?" She nodded. "Yes. Data analytics is what I do best. Let me earn my place. I don't want people to say you gave me favors." Andrew smiled, proud and impressed. "You've got fire, Alice. That's what I love about you." The next week, he made her the head of data analytics at Okafor Technologies. Her ideas were sharp, her leadership calm but firm. Within a month, she improved the company's data systems, impressing even Andrew's toughest board members. Soon, the media began to take notice. Okafor Tech's new data leader revolutionizes internal systems. One headline read, But behind every smile in the press photo, there were whispers in the corridors. "She's sleeping her way to the top," one manager whispered. "I heard she's the CEO's girlfriend," another muttered. "That's why she's in that chair." Andrew heard it all, but he ignored them. What mattered to him was truth. Alice had earned every ounce of success. Still, the whispers found their way into the boardroom. One morning, during a meeting, Mr. Lawson, the company's financial director, cleared his throat. "Sir," he said cautiously, "we've received several complaints about favoritism. Some shareholders believe Miss Alice's promotion has emotional motives." The room went quiet. Andrew's jaw tightened. "Are you suggesting she doesn't deserve her position?" Lawson looked uncomfortable. "I'm only saying perception matters, sir." "Thank you for watching." Andrew leaned forward, eyes hard. "Then let them perceive the truth that she's the best at what she does." Meeting dismissed. That night, Andrew drove home in silence. He barely touched his dinner. Alice noticed immediately. "You're quiet," she said softly. "What's wrong?" He tried to smile. "Nothing serious, just business politics." She reached for his hand. "Don't let them get to you. I can step down if it's causing problems." Andrew shook his head firmly. "No, Alice, you've worked for this. I won't let anyone take it away." Madame Teresa watched them from across the table. Her heart swelled with pride and a little fear. She had lived long enough to know that life rarely gives blessings without testing them. A week later, an unexpected visitor arrived at Andrew's office. Mr. Okafor, a powerful investor from Abuja, known for his ruthless business style. "Andrew," he said with a grin, "I want to buy 40% of your company." Andrew frowned. 40? That's too much. Okafor's grin widened. "You'll stay CEO, but my people will take control of the board. In exchange, I'll make your company go global." Andrew hesitated. It was tempting. But there was something in Okafor's tone, sharp, predatory. "What's the catch?" Okafor leaned closer. "Simple. Fire the girl. Alice. Her presence is bad for your brand. Investors don't like messy stories." Andrew froze. "She's talented," he said slowly. "She's a distraction," Okafor replied coldly. "Decide fast. You have 48 hours. Then he walked out. That evening, Andrew sat on the balcony. The city lights of Lagos stretching below like stars fallen to earth. Madame Teresa joined him quietly, her shawl wrapped around her shoulders. "You look troubled, my son," she said. Andrew sighed. "It's business. They want me to choose the company or Alice." Madame Teresa looked away for a moment, her eyes soft with memory. "When I was kidnapped," she said, "I lost everything, my home, my husband, even my name. But the worst loss wasn't money or power, it was love. I thought no one would ever care for me again." She turned to him. "Don't throw away love to please men who will forget your name tomorrow." Andrew looked down, tears stinging his eyes. "You sound like my mother." She smiled gently. "Maybe God sent me so she could speak to you through me." The next morning, Andrew called an emergency board meeting. When everyone had settled, he stood tall at the head of the table. "I've made my decision," he said. "Mr. Okafor's offer is rejected." Gasps filled the room. Lawson stammered, "Sir, that's billions in profit." Andrew cut him off. "Money means nothing if it costs me my integrity or the people I love." He looked directly at Alice, who sat near the end of the table, her eyes wide with emotion. "This company was built on values," Andrew continued, "and we will not sell those values for greed." He left the boardroom to stunned silence. That night, at home, Alice ran into his arms, tears glistening on her cheeks. "I heard what you did," she whispered. "You risked everything." Andrew smiled faintly. "Some things are worth more than everything." From the corner of the room, Madame Teresa wiped a tear. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "When I was under that bridge, I prayed that whoever found me would have a kind heart. I didn't know that person would also save my daughter." Alice held her mother's hand. "He didn't just save us, Mommy. He gave us a new beginning." Andrew looked at them both, two women who had changed his life forever and felt something he hadn't felt since childhood. Peace. The next morning, the front page of the newspaper carried his story. "Is greater than. Billionaire CEO rejects $1 billion deal, chooses love over power." The world praised him. But to Andrew, the only applause that mattered was the smile from Madame Teresa and the gentle kiss from Alice. Yet fate still had one more chapter to write, one final breathtaking twist that would change all their lives forever. The sound of wedding bells filled the grand cathedral that morning. Sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows, painting the walls with soft colors of red, gold, and blue. Guests filled every pew, family, friends, and business partners, each whispering about the unbelievable love story between the billionaire CEO, who found a homeless woman at a trash can, and the daughter she thought she had lost forever. At the front of the aisle, Andrew Okafor stood tall in his white tuxedo, his eyes shining with emotion. He tried to steady his breathing, but his heart beat fast with excitement. Beside him, the pastor smiled knowingly. The music swelled. Everyone turned toward the entrance. And there she was, Alice. She looked like a dream in a flowing ivory gown, her veil glimmering under the light. Her makeup was soft, her eyes bright with tears. But the most beautiful sight wasn't her dress or her jewelry. It was the woman walking her down the aisle. Madame Teresa, no longer the frail woman from the trash bin, but a graceful mother, dressed in an elegant blue lace gown, her silver hair neatly tied, tears flowing freely. Her hand trembled slightly as she held her daughter's arm. Every step they took was a miracle written by kindness. The guests rose to their feet. Some clapped, others cried. When they reached the altar, Teresa smiled through her tears and placed Alice's hand into Andrew's. "She's my world," she whispered to him. "Take care of her, the same way you took care of me." Andrew's throat tightened. "I promise, Ma." Teresa stepped back, her eyes glistening as the ceremony began. When it was time for their vows, Andrew's voice shook slightly. "Alice," he began, "when I first saw your mother that day, under the bridge, I didn't know that act of kindness would lead me to you. I thought I was saving a life, but I was really finding mine." Tears rolled down Alice's cheeks as she smiled softly. "I used to pray for someone who would love me the way my father loved my mother," she said, her voice steady. "But when I met you, I found something even greater. Someone who loves others like God loves us. You brought my family back to me, Andrew. And now, I'll spend my life bringing joy back to yours." There wasn't a dry eye in the room when the pastor said, "You may now kiss the bride." Andrew lifted her veil gently. Their lips met, and the crowd erupted in applause. At the reception, laughter and music filled the hall. Waiters moved around with trays of food, and photographers clicked away. But the moment everyone remembered came when Madame Teresa was asked to give her speech. She stood slowly, the microphone shaking slightly in her hand. The crowd fell silent. "3 years ago," she began, "I was not this woman you see before you. I was broken. I was lost. I slept under a bridge and ate from trash cans because no one saw me as human anymore." She paused, her voice trembling. "Until this young man," she looked at Andrew, stopped his car, came down from his Bentley, and said, "Please don't eat that, Ma." He didn't know me. He didn't know my story. But he saw my pain and gave me hope. Tears shimmered in her eyes, and that single act of kindness became a chain of miracles, because the woman he saved turned out to be my daughter's mother. He didn't just feed me, he restored a family. She turned to Alice and Andrew, her voice breaking with emotion. "And today, I'm giving my daughter to the man who saved her mother, to the man who reminds me that kindness still lives in this world." The entire hall stood to their feet, clapping and crying. Cameras flashed. People shouted, "Amen." From the back, Andrew held Alice's hand tighter, whispering, "We'll never forget this day." The scene shifted to a quiet hospital room, bathed in golden morning light. Alice lay on the bed, her hair tied back, a tired but joyful smile on her face. In her arms rested a newborn baby girl wrapped in a white blanket. Andrew stood beside her, his eyes soft with awe. "She's perfect," he whispered. Madame Teresa entered slowly, her hands shaking with emotion. Can I hold her?" Alice nodded, tears already flowing. "Of course, Mummy." Teresa lifted the baby carefully, pressing her against her chest. "What's her name?" she asked. Alice and Andrew exchanged a glance before answering together. "Olivia." Teresa froze. "Olivia? That was your mother's name, wasn't it, Andrew?" He nodded, his eyes misty. "Yes. The woman who taught me to stop when I see pain. She's the reason I helped you that day." Teresa smiled through her tears. "Then it's perfect. Olivia, the name of kindness." She rocked the baby gently, her voice soft and trembling. "See how life comes full circle? One act of love can feed generations." Months later, a large banner fluttered in front of a modern glass building in Lekki. The Olivia Foundation, feeding hope across Nigeria. Andrew and Alice stood side by side at the grand opening, with Madame Teresa beside them, cutting the ribbon. Cameras flashed as children from the nearby orphanage cheered. The foundation's mission was simple: to provide food and shelter for the homeless and elderly across the country. Every meal we serve, Andrew said during his speech, is a thank you to the woman who once ate from a trash can and to every person society forgets. Madame Teresa stood proudly, her hands clasped. "You saved me," she said softly. "But today, you're saving others." Alice smiled. "Because love always finds its way." As the sun set that evening, the three of them stood together outside the foundation building. The wind carried laughter and music from the event. Andrew placed his arm around Alice, while Madame Teresa gently rocked baby Olivia in her arms. They looked at the horizon, the same Lagos skyline that once held pain and despair, now glowing with hope. "Mommy," Alice whispered, "do you ever think about that day at the trash can?" Teresa smiled faintly. "Every day. But now I think about what came after. That from the dirtiest place, God planted the purest love." Andrew kissed Alice's forehead, his voice quiet. "Kindness saved us all." The camera of the world seemed to pull back slowly, showing them standing together, a family reborn through compassion. And as the city lights flickered to life, one truth echoed louder than anything else: is greater than. A single act of kindness can rewrite destiny. If you like this story, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.